Here is Freddy Fish. He is swimming around in his fishbowl day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. His bowl is placed conveniently close to the TV, which he gets to watch every day. Every day he sees the same thing on the TV. They keep impressing the idea that water does not exist. No, there is no water. Water does not exist. Day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Well, of course, Freddy Fish comes to the conclusion that if the TV is saying it and others seem to believe it, then, well, it must be true. With his open-mindedness, he asks himself the question, how do I know if water exists? Now, how would you go about trying to convince Freddy Fish that water exists when he really doesn't believe it? Despite the fact that all the evidence around him screams out that water exists, possibly the only way he will believe that water exists is if he jumps out of his bowl. But then, of course, it would be too late. How do we know anything exists? What is it that convinces us that some things do exist while others don't? Is it always the evidence that convinces us? Or do we favour things that confirm what we want to hear, what we're used to hearing, our personal preference? I asked a man what kind of evidence it would take to convince him, and he said, "What kind of evidence would it take? God would have to personally tap me on the shoulder before I would believe he existed." And he laughed. In reality, he agreed that even if God tapped him on the shoulder, he would still find some excuse to explain it away. There was no amount of evidence that would convince him, ever. Lack of evidence was not the real issue. No amount of evidence will convince anyone if they're not willing to consider that evidence, even if God was to tap you on the shoulder. Consider this. The cell is a vastly complex arrangement of parts that must all work together, or it cannot live. How can lifeless matter organize itself to become a complex living cell? By definition, it can't do anything. It's dead. The information in your DNA, 2.9 billion base pairs per cell, in each of your body's 37 trillion cells, programs everything about your body. Where did this complex information come from? Such information never occurs randomly. It is observed that complex information only ever comes from intelligence. No rational person would believe that a Ferrari could just poof appear by accident. There had to be a designer and builder. Yet a single cell is vastly more complex than a Ferrari. The most logically obvious conclusion is that life was designed and carefully constructed. Though this may not be what you want to hear. The intensity of the designer's intelligence and power is visible for all to see. The evidence is unavoidable if you can set your preference aside, open your eyes, and think. The real issue, well, people deny the existence of God because they don't want to submit to God. They don't want anyone telling them what is right or wrong. Declaring God is dead, they want to be God and decide for themselves. How would you feel if someone denied your existence and wanted you dead? How should God respond as you effectively give him the proverbial finger? How could he remain a good and just judge without punishing such arrogant rebellion? He must rightly crush his enemies, those who reject him as king. This rebellion and treachery against the designer, creator, and king of the universe affects us all. No one is innocent. Yet, he wants you to know him and his mercy by personal encounter. So, he became one of us. He himself became a man and walked among us. He did amazing things, as you would expect. He healed the sick, made the blind see, the mute speak, the deaf hear, the lame walk, the incurable well. He freed the captives, calmed the storm, walked on water, fed thousands with a handful, spoke the truth, warned of hell, forgave sin, infuriated the religious. He raised the dead, and while many noticed, not many paid attention. He then went all the way and took the penalty of death that you and I rightly deserve. He died on a wooden cross, suffering the judgment and anger of God in your place. He was crushed so that you can live. On the third day, he broke the power of death, demonstrating once for all that he is God and that he lives forever. Many witnesses confirmed it. What more would you expect? Tap on the shoulder? What will it take for you to see that your Creator, Jesus, is calling you to pay attention to who he is and what he's done for you? I tell you the truth, whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life and will not be condemned. He has crossed over from death to life, Jesus said. Forgiveness and life are freely available from the King. Change your mind and cross over before it's too late to figure it out.